I've had this machine for just a little over a year now, and I want to talk about one thing with the pump drain filter system down below, and a couple more tips for that, because it's going to be a real short video. We've all had to clean out the drain filter, the pump drain filter, and that's down here in this little compartment. What I've found just most recently is I'm usually doing a wash and a dry cycle. And when I do a wash and a dry cycle and I drain it, I usually have about 2 to 3 cups of water in the drain. And the last cycle that I did was actually on the bedding cycle, which was 3 bath mats, and they did not have a dry cycle because it's just too clunky and heavy and would take too long. You can't do a spin to get enough water out to make the dry cycle efficient. So I just hung them outside on the line to dry. Because 2 of those bath mats are the kind that shed and clog up that filter every single time, I drained it and it had about 9 to 10 cups of water in it. Usually I've got 2 to 3 cups of water. I have a little Pyrex dish that I drain it into, and that Pyrex dish holds 3 cups, and it usually is 2/3 full. So I'm thinking when you don't actually do a dry cycle, more water is actually retained in the pump drain filter chamber. And perhaps that's just because it hasn't gone through the dry cycle, and the dry cycle also extracts moisture and pumps it out into the drain. Maybe the dry cycle also evaporates some of that water in the pump drain filter chamber. When I first bought the machine, there was one reviewer online who said to have a more efficient dry cycle, you want to drain this drain filter after every wash, and then the machine doesn't have to make all that evaporate. So I'm still not 100% sure if that actually happens, because it could be just the dry cycle requires more pumping and gets more of that water out, whereas the wash cycle doesn't. Or maybe it does evaporate it. That might be another experiment that I need to do to find out. I did drain this morning, and if you are not draining it at least once a week, you probably should. It is always stinky when it comes out of there. It's just stagnant water full of wash and fabric residue, and it just sits there and starts to stink and rot. Rot is the wrong word. It's not rotting. It's getting musty and mildewy and rank. Maybe rank's the better word. So if you are not changing that out at least once a week, even though the manual says you should check this filter once a month, you will find that that may create more stink in your machine and more stink in the overall chambers of the machine. So I think you want to change that more frequently, and especially if you aren't doing laundry every day. I think if you're doing laundry almost every day, that's probably going to cycle through pretty regularly. And unless you do something with a lot of cat hair or a lot of fabric that falls apart and gets caught in the drain filter, you probably could let it go a month. I've never let it go more than a week to 10 days or 2 weeks tops. And sometimes when I've let it go that long, I've been in trouble, and the drain filter gets clogged, and then I have to stop the machine, drain all the water out of the tub. It's a big pain in the butt. So you want to avoid that. So I recommend changing it more frequently. And if you are going to do laundry once a week and then do no laundry for the next week until the next weekend or whenever, if you're going to be week to 10 days in between periods of doing laundry, you want to drain that water out in that stagnant period. I did my last load of laundry last weekend. It's now the next weekend. It's Saturday. And I drained it this morning, and it was rank and musty and mildewy and mucky water. Water just sitting there with stuff in it. Is there bacteria in it? I don't know. Probably not, because it's all been washed and sterilized and through the wash process, but it is dirty water and it's just sitting there. You want to drain that. Now, one of the things that I do when I drain this, I just drain it so nothing's going to come out, or nothing should come out. Make sure you clean this out really well, rinse it out, wash it, clean that seal, make sure the seal is clean. The seal looks like I could use a little bit more cleaning on it, but it's fine. If you want to get in here and clean all this out and get all the muck and gunk out of there, that's good too. I found that about every couple of months, it starts draining a little bit slowly out of the tube. So at that point, it's not coming out fully. And at that point, I just blow a little air, whether it's compressed air or I put my mouth on the tube and I blow some air while this is out. And that kind of pushes back into this chamber and releases some of that gunk that has gotten into the inlet of this drain tube. So if you find your drain tube is draining slower than it used to, you need to blow some air in there and free that chamber up. That's going to be really good for your long-term maintenance, and you won't have to get a service call out when it completely clogs up and you don't know what's going on. So see if you can keep that a little bit more clean. And sometimes when you put it in, it feels like you tighten it, but it gets cross-threaded. And you won't know until you start running a cycle and water starts leaking out there. So I just cross-threaded it. So I'm gonna back it out again. I'm gonna just come back in and just go straight in and see if I can get it. It really needs to go about 5.5, 6 times before it's tight. And then of course, seal this up and shove that back in. A little bit more on that pump filter drain maintenance. So attend to that. You can clean this up. I'm not really good at cleaning all this residue up, but you can clean up the residue around the thing. I think this even comes off. At some point, I think you can squeeze these things out. Look at that. You can take those hinges out. You just squeeze them together. And this can come out and you can take it, wash it to in the sink and clean it better. Time that I did that. And it just snaps back in, no problem. All right, all clear. We're gonna do our planned wash cycle and other video now.